Hi, welcome to Composer's Voice, 15 Minutes of Fame, and we're here talking with Tallā Rouge, Aria, and Lauren. How are
Hello,
you guys this
everyone.
morning?
Doing pretty great. We're having our tea, enjoying the beautiful lack of fall sunshine, and glad to be talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we're definitely having a very you. So I was about to say a New York day, but I'm here based in New York City, and you guys are.
We're based in Washington, D.C., just outside of it, yeah.
So the East Coast is sharing some gray days.
Yeah,
Yes.
I suppose we're only 3 hours from one another, so probably share a lot of weather days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys tend to get a little bit warmer than what we have, but that's all right. It's all good. I love it when the the cherry blossoms happen. It's my
Mm.
exciting time to come to DC when I can.
We missed it. We were too busy duoing.
Yeah, we were pretty bummed about it last year. We missed it, so.
So you know, talking about being busy, how about you guys tell us what's your group name, who you are, and what you do?
Sure.
Well, we're Tallā Rouge Viola Duo. We are, I think, one of the only, if not the only, young viola duo that's sort of concertizing in the country, which we really love. We basically started things in the pandemic, and we were stuck in a house together, and we had no people to play music with. And so we started reading some of the original viola duos, like The Bridge Lament and Brandenburg Concerto Number 6, the things that everyone knows and loves. And then we didn't get bored, but we definitely wanted to expand our repertoire. So this is sort of where the duo was born. We started looking at fiddle works. We started looking at West Asian works. We started rearranging things that were written for all sorts of other instruments. And I think we found a lot of joy doing the duo over these last couple of years. And so, yeah.
Great, and tell me about the title, the name of your group.
Yeah, so Tallā Rouge, it's kind of an homage to both of our uh, backgrounds. My dad is from Iran, so I'm half Persian, and Tala is a Farsi word that means gold. And Rouge, well, Lauren's your family's from Louisiana. She has some Cajun background, so French Rouge means red. So together, red gold, um, and it's a nickname actually for saffron, the red gold. So it all kind of tied it in together to kind of give an homage to like Persian culture, and yeah, yeah, we thought it was catchy and cool and meant something to us personally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And why don't we talk a little bit about your backgrounds? Uh, who wants to go first? Tell us your name and your background, and I don't know
Sure.
how you came to music.
Yeah, I can go first. So my name is Lauren. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, to a mom who dreamed that I was a country western singer. I'm not. I can't sing. We don't want to hear that. I actually had a little bit of a weird path into music. I started pretty late. I didn't have really any classical influences at all, and got introduced to the classical music world through movie music. So I started listening to movie soundtracks, and I started really falling in love with them. And that kind of jump started me exploring the viola. I think while people were learning Hindemith Viola Concerto, I was learning The Last Mohican and, all sorts of other movie soundtracks. Tuck Everlasting was one that I really, really loved. And so I wasn't really able to play a concerto by the end of high school. So I actually went into neuroscience. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon and did 2 years of pre med. And then I went to my first music festival ever and had my first chamber music experience. and I knew right then that I had to change careers. I think I practiced 8 hours a day for the next year just because I was kind of behind, and ended up getting accepted everywhere I wanted. I ended up going to Oberlin Conservatory with Peter Slowick, and he kind of took me under his wing and helped me grow into a more educated musician in the classical music world. So since then, I have kind of hopped around and am in residence at the University of Maryland right now with the Tallā String Quartet, as well as doing the duo in my other time, my other life.
Awesome. How about you?
Yeah, my name's Aria, and I'm originally from North Carolina. And I mentioned earlier, yeah, my dad's from Iran, half Persian. My mom's from Pennsylvania. Got lots of stuff going on. Yeah, so I grew up around Durham, Raleigh area in North Carolina, and I went to a charter school and started the viola when I was 7. I kind of got roped into it. That's when we got to like choose our instrument for orchestra, and there weren't enough violists, naturally. So I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I'll try it out. And I guess it kind of worked out for me. So, yeah, I think I had more of a traditional start, I guess, than Lauren did. I did all the youth orchestras there, and I played violin for a little bit, but then I came back to viola. That's where my heart lies. For undergrad, I went to New England Conservatory and studied with Kim Kashkashian there, which was amazing. I loved Boston. I miss it a lot. Then I did my master's at Juilliard in New York, which sadly I was only there in person for 6 months, and then pandemic happened. So then I finished Juilliard virtually in Colorado with Lauren. So that's when we started kind of working on the duo, and we worked with my teacher a bit, Roger Tapping, virtually, played some of our stuff for him.
And he was a big
supporter, and yeah,
a big reason why we kind of continued and started. And he unfortunately passed away last year,
yeah,
which is very sad. He was quite young.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we moved out to DC, and I'm kind of hanging with Lauren doing the duo, but also I travel quite a lot up and down the East Coast for different, playing with different chamber orchestras, chamber groups, different ensembles, and things like that. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah, I can identify with both sides of your group. I played the violin for a very, very short time. Also because they needed people,
Yeah.
and did that. I didn't practice. Meanwhile, I also, I didn't practice. I dropped out. I was a science guy, so I did a lot of that, and then anyway, it's not about me, but I also all of a sudden jumped into music and was like, oh, this is it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it a great feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. So let's talk more about a little bit, like one of the things that I see in your group is like talking about culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that a little bit. Like so Cajun Persian, a very spicy cultures.
Yeah, we thought so too.
Yeah. Tell
I mean,
me that.
let's see. When talking about culture for our group and what inspired the culture of our group, we both were really inspired by the music of our heritages, but even more, I think we felt an absence on the classical concert stage of folk music and the roots that create us. And I think sometimes there's a tendency to forget that Beethoven, when he was writing his great works, included folk music of all around him. He included the songs people knew on the streets. He included what he heard in the bar. And, I think we wanted to bring a little bit of that back to a classical concert stage that sometimes can feel uncomfortable. We want people to laugh. We want people to feel inspired to clap along or like dance a little bit. And I think that's a really positive and healthy addition to the future of classical music. And then even weirder, none of this exists for viola anyways. So adding that extra layer to something that doesn't exist already really felt impactful to us. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it was also really important for me to kind of dive into some Persian works and kind of just more works of Western Asian cultures. I kind of fell in love with classical music because of my dad. His father was a composer actually in Iran. I never met him, sadly, but my dad has told me many stories, and he had his own traditional like Persian folk group that he worked with there and recorded multiple LPs, which I want to find one day. That's my goal. Um, but yeah, so I just wanted to feel more connected to a side of me that I really didn't get to experience super tangibly. It's always been like through stories that my dad has told me and, things like that. So diving into things like our Tigran Mansourian work that we recently have recorded it just means a lot to me. So,
And to add to that a little bit, just to give a little more context, Aria's dad came to the U.S. right before the Iranian Revolution, and was never really able to go back. So I think, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I think Aria grew up feeling a little bit of that distance really palpably. And finding the music has been really a fun adventure for both of us to watch me kind of experience her experiencing a part of herself she hadn't really seen. So.
Cool. And so let me ask you a couple of. So let me hit the Cajun first. Do you do any fiddle playing? Is there any? Yes.
Well, I don't do any official fiddle playing. I would not call myself a fiddle player, but I have sat for many hours and imitated, the fiddle player of Crooked Still. I love the sounds. My granddaddy, who like worked in the sulfur mines for the majority of his life, still dances every day. He goes out to Cajun dance clubs and he's still getting it at like 85. It's a big part of the culture, and the music in Louisiana, I think, has been contagious around the world, even influencing rock. It's kind of the merge of spirituals and soul music and jazz and fiddle, and the conglomeration of that, I think, has really stuck with me, even though I'm not a fiddle player, even though I wish I were.
Well, so there's a little bit of me that's like you don't need to be a fiddle player, right? That's anyway. You're obviously gravitated towards viola. This is what you're doing, and so forth, and everything. And well, I mean, fiddle playing, I think, is mostly on the violin, right?
Mostly, there's some 5 strings. We have a couple commissions coming out that are involving more fiddle sounds. They're hard to find in the classical music world, and I am not a natural fiddle player. I have to read the music. So,
but there's when you were talking about bringing sort of this ethnicity to to classical music, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of the role of contemporary music, is to sort of make that contemporary and to look at these things that we can borrow from or take from our past or from our culture, of which, I mean, I I'm kind of a very amateuristic Cajun aficionado. You know, I love Cajun. I do. I really do. And but yeah, how little of it do we see? Right? It's
Yeah.
it's not in the we'll say the chamber music circuit. It's just
Right.
every once in a while I I see something, and I would say I don't know if you guys have ever seen. Does he call himself the Cajun cellist? I forget, but he's got like a wood box, and he's a cellist that's in the subway that goes nuts. He's awesome.
I don't think
I'll
we
try to find a link so you guys see
Yeah.
him. He's anyway, but
I'll
I
have to
haven't
check
seen
it out.
him forever, and
Mm.
I feel like it's definitely missing. It's a you know a bucket that needs to be filled, maybe.
Yeah.
With that said, let's go to Persia, and so I feel like besides maybe the classic tropes that is like, oh, this is Arabic music. Um, there's a rich history there, and you know, tradition of music and music style and so forth. You know, they also have some very awesome string instruments and things that people we just don't know of
Yeah.
here. Of yeah, obviously there's a there's a political divide, right? Of which this is part of it, and you know, there's one thing to understand that, but I also feel like it's a lost opportunity to experiment and to introduce to stuff that isn't Western classical music.
Mhm.
And Aria, like, is there something? I mean, if your grandfather was a composer, so you haven't heard any of his compositions?
Mm-mm.
That's,
Yeah.
may I say this, and any composer out there who's Iranian, this is the duo to write for, right? This
Yes,
is
please.
please, 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 please do. And I say that because you know my organization is fortunate to have a few Iranian composers that Persian and Iranian and Armenian and a lot of that particular region, and some Turkish and
Great.
you know that whole area there,
Mhm.
because you know when we talk about Persia, right, it's actually much larger than yeah, so it was a large empire at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're fortunate to have some composers who do write for 15 Minutes of Fame, and
That's awesome.
yeah, so I hope they take
Yes,
this
please.
opportunity to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Even if they don't get selected, right? It doesn't. It's not all
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
win-win-win. Just
Well, you know,
you.
it's super interesting because one of my favorite composers since maybe my first year of college is Komitas in Armenia, and I feel like Komitas did what Bartok did. He was one of the first to write down a huge anthology of Western Asian music, of Armenian music, and he's created an amazing legacy in Armenia. And there's an amazing classical, like Western classical music culture that has crossed over with Armenia because of that. And a lot of these other countries, they don't quite have as many. It's really difficult to find pieces. It's incredibly difficult to find pieces that are not Armenian. And so
Yeah.
we search and search and
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, my grandfather, for example, my dad told me he couldn't read or write music. Everything was done by ear
Mhm.
and imitation and like improv and stuff like that. So, you know, for us trying to find things written down, yeah, it's very difficult. And finding things that are done by people that are Iranian or that's another thing too, um, making sure it's authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's Anyway, that is part of the struggle on a lot of different levels, especially. Uh, I, anyway, for me as a composer, there's I feel the Western notation is hundreds of years old
Mm-hmm.
and antiquated
Yeah.
as a composer. I just
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't a good system that didn't work. It still works,
Mhm.
and we still read it, and because it's the common language or common language in Western society.
Yes. Yeah.
But wow, it would at the very least it would be great to add some new things. You know, I'm a anyway. I'm a big graphic notational composer.
Cool.
I've done a lot of that stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah. So anyway, it's part of my crazy background. um, so. Uh, Thinking which way do I want talk about 15 minutes of fame in a second. Let's talk more about I run this other site called Composer Site.
Mm.
And is that where I saw your call? I'm almost sure.
Yeah, I think you might have seen it there or on Instagram. We do a lot on social media just because we feel it's important these days to keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was really excited. Your call really excited me. I was just like, oh, this is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
this is a group looking to go out there. And so you were calling for works. Tell me about your call for works.
So our call for works was essentially if any West Asian composer writes us a piece, we will play it and record it. And, you know, this is difficult. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy to get these pieces recorded. But we don't have the commission funds to necessarily go out and commission everyone we want. So what we can offer is our time and our energy. And we really just want to build a list, start people thinking about this, continue pulling out anything we can for music that we love in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just say thank you guys. It's awesome to have performers that you like really just you can tell you're just throwing it out there, putting your hard time, your hard effort into it and so forth, and it really it comes across both in your website and your call, and that's what inspired me to be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. You know, and I really love this idea of you know opening this sort of opportunity for disenfranchised composers to have a place to express themselves. And or I mean, you guys would also probably be open to older works if someone's holding something. Yeah, it's always good to remember. Like I'm about contemporary composers, but it's not all about us.
We like you
it
though.
to be. So anyway, I thought that 15 minutes of fame might be a great place for you guys to like get out there. For everybody, 15 minutes of fame is 15 one-minute works that we ask composers without call for scores, and we ask composers to write 1-minute pieces for a particular musician or ensemble. In this case, Tallā Rouge for 2 violas, which I personally love the ensemble. Just so you guys know, I'm a big fan of the viola. And so let me ask you this: what do you guys like about that project? Or what do you think?
I mean, it's really exciting to what you mentioned a second ago. People even that have pieces that have been sitting around. Maybe they're for 2 clarinets, and they want to rearrange it for us, that could work as well. And like, I don't know, just being super creative and funky, because this is a really funky combination of two violas. But yeah, it's the possibilities really can be endless. And we did have a composer competition that we held actually last year or the year before, and we had about 68 submissions of viola duos, and we were blown away by some of this stuff. It was awesome, and just like, yeah, people from all over the world, and I don't know, it was super inspiring to see that people can be as inspired by this nerdy combo
Yeah.
as we are. But it's also super important for us to kind of rewrite the definition of a viola duo. You know, we want it to be something more soloistic, more, you know, yeah, less just in the background as it has been previously. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then to agree with everything Aria said, but to kind of follow that up a little bit more is something like 15 Minutes of Fame, I think, is a really incredible opportunity to get like a moosh boosh. You know, you get like just enough of an idea out to show who you are, and having that opportunity for us and for the compositions and for the composers, I think it's really awesome just to get just a taste, and then you're left wanting more too.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree wholeheartedly. Moosh boosh. Ooh, you've got a new. I got a new thing to tote around. I love that. That's great.
what is it in French? To the tongue, I think.
Yeah, yes, yeah. But that's the, yeah. That was kind of the purpose of it. It's just to literally be a place for a composer to like throw out just, here's what I do, and you know, we all can like or not like it, right? Or maybe it's just not the right time, but it can be used somewhere else. But just a little introduction, you know. This is what we do. There's so many great composers out there and doing things, and I feel like not every opportunity has to be the best of the best, the greatest of the greatest, and so forth. It's going to be on Carnegie, Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center. Boom! You know, this is their masterpiece for all time. You know, just like, just how about a little moosh boosh?
Yeah.
Because this is what I do. Maybe maybe
Yeah.
we'll do something more together in the future, right?
Yeah, and then the ideas, you can reuse them. It's just like a palette to have someone try your idea, which I love. It's like, you know, painters have their little palette that they put everything on. My grandfather was a nude sculpturist and painter, and you know, they always had the palette, or they would put their coffee mug on a piece of paper, and then they would just draw whatever came out of their head. And I think this is the same thing, just for composition.
Absolutely. And who knows where it goes, right? I mean, that's it. The sketches and so forth and everything. Yeah. Is it a masterpiece right there? It could be. And then, or maybe it's going to grow into something much, much bigger.
Yeah.
And, well, so yeah, so that's the point of 15 Minutes of Fame. And I am so excited that you guys are going to be a part of it. I'm like, you know, this is it's a yeah. We talked to. So there's commissioning, which is kind of an interesting thing, but we're also talking about Western Asian. I remember when we were working through the call. So the call for you guys is get basically to your roots, like take something of your culture or whatever.
Yeah.
And why don't you tell me a little bit about that? What would like? So if a composer's just like, viola duo, can't wait to write. 1 minute, composers always want to know like the secret sauce that's going to get them picked, right? Again, everybody just write what you want to write. That's the best way. But
Yeah.
like, so it's to your roots. Tell me a little bit about like what type of stuff are you looking for?
Sure. So our call to your roots explores your own roots. I think people get really excited when they see Cajun Persian viola duo and they go look up Cajun music and they go look up Persian music. But we feel that the music that speaks the most from each individual composer is the music they know the most. And we really love when people explore their own roots. We really love when people explore the folk music of their heritage and their past. And we really love hearing that brought to life for a classical concert stage with some funky, as Aria mentioned earlier. Yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think it's just, we love hearing everyone's own personal influences. And as much as we want Cajun Persian stuff, we want to hear and what inspires the composer, and yeah, like what was the Limestone and Felt is one of our new favorite works to play right now.
Aria just finished arranging it, so.
And Lauren and I in our free time don't always listen to classical music, so doing some cool folky, like lots of cool pizzicato stuff is great.
Yeah.
Rock on.
So really, sorry. Yeah,
No.
for composers out there, the world is your oyster, and
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that is, to me, so I thought that was the greatest thing that I found from you guys is just like embracing your culture and ethnicity but looking to enjoy and celebrate everyone's culture.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really an open call for people to go nuts, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, you would never go, or okay, here's my logic, right? Is when I go get a haircut, if I go in and I say, I want this, 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 and this, it always turns out bad. But if I go in and I say, I want you to have fun with my hair, someone takes it as a personal project and it becomes exciting in a different way. And I find all the time I get a better haircut than if I go in and say, I'd like to look like Justin Bieber, So that same thing with the call for scores.
Awesome. So, since we're opening up Pandora's box, let's let me geek out as a composer for a little bit. Like, what can we write for you? The viola is like I said, I played a little violin. I love the viola. I know the instrument a bit. What can we write and what can't we write? So if there's a little fiddle playing, you're up for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. You guys seem like, Bartok fans.
Yeah,
so there's,
very much so.
For all the
Big
composers
Bartok
out there who know, there's a big, wide thing there.
Aria really likes to sing and sounds beautiful.
I mean, if somebody wanted to get exciting and incorporate voice as well, just make sure it's alto. That's the only thing I will put out there.
I mean, there's a little bit of me. It's like, should I add that to the call? But I'm like, you know what? They can listen to this, and then before they start going, no, what's her range and so forth. Anyway.
Yeah.
Listen to this alto. Do what you can. What if they write for Lauren too?
Oh yeah,
I can
she can whistle.
I whistle in one of our pieces. I'm not great at it, but I'm open to experimenting. Yeah, I think we're
Gotcha.
typically open.
Let's see. Now, do you guys know John Zorn?
No, who's that?
He is a great jazz composer
Hmm.
thing, and fabulous guy composer. And I watched a string quartet play one of his pieces where he literally threw the kitchen sink into, and when I mean the kitchen sink, I mean they were playing and this quartet was like going
Yeah.
for broke, as loud as they could and so forth and everything. And I'm watching them play and it's getting crescendo and so forth. And one of the strings pops right on stage.
Hmm.
I watched them and they just switch to the next string. They play, 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 play. There's a like a second pause. He goes like this. The second violinist hands him his violin, and he goes and he goes that. I was just like, was that written in the score?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, composer shouldn't write popping the string, right?
Maybe not.
Maybe avoid popping strings,
Avoid popping
but
strings.
sometimes it happens if you write forte
Yeah.
a lot.
It can. I definitely don't encourage any composer to try to make that happen. But so there's other crazy things people do playing
Yeah.
upside down. You don't care?
Yeah, no,
No.
I'll play upside down.
Yeah.
Why not? One thing we do usually do is when we have these calls, there's a couple pieces that we encourage composers to go check out. One that I think is super effective these days is Gabriella Smith, Carrot Revolution. Really cool extended techniques. The limestone and felt has been a fun one for, it's basically like elevated pop music.
By
which
Caroline Shaw.
by Carolyn Shaw, Limestone and Felt by Carolyn Shaw. One of the most successful viola duos of maybe more Western classical music is by Frank Bridge, and it's a lament for two violas, and it's basically a string quartet for two violas, but it's
Okay.
written incredibly successfully. And then another one is the Tigran Mansourian. And then as composers are considering these things, there are an exorbitant amount of laments, elegies, and lacrimae for viola or for two viola. So programmatically, continuing to write these is very challenging unless we're planning to release an album of
Just all that.
only that. So we're looking for things that are not necessarily laments most of the time, just because they're more programmatically effective these days.
Composers don't write laments.
There's enough sad music for viola out there.
Or if you do, make sure it's the best one in the world.
Yes.
Composers don't write laments. I remember my teacher going to me and saying, yes, we can all go and write a sad tune," and and he was commenting on one of my pieces, "Tears of Dew" for cello and piano.
I hear you. I hear you, Rob.
It's very sad.
I mean, we love the, sad stuff's great. Yeah, we do. So,
How about this? Let's leave it. Let's leave it after like the pandemic and everything that's going on.
oh,
I
that's
think
true.
we've
need to
had
let
a lot
it
of sad stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer now of let's celebrate a little.
I will say we play the snot out of sad things.
We do.
I bet you do. You're two viola players. Of course you do.
We're always sad, so. All right. Okay, I have one viola joke for you.
Okay.
What's the similarity between a viola and a lawsuit? Everyone is happier when the case is closed.
Oh. That was so bad good.
Not me.
Mufasa. Gotta sit in that one a little bit. Sorry, we gotta tell some viola joke on a viola
that's
interview.
silly, dude. Like I said, I'm a big, huge viola fan. I have this piece for viola and tenor, believe it or not.
Cool.
So anyway, maybe when I get brave enough, I'll send that towards you guys. You can.
That'd
Yeah.
probably
Tell me
be
what
in
you
my
think.
voice range.
Oh yeah. It would be in your voice range. Anyway, I am
We'll
not
talk
here
later.
to promote my stuff, but I will say this for all these composers that are listening to this afterwards. This is why you listen to these conversations, and you should be here live, going, "Hey, what about me?" and this and that and the other thing, and chiming in with your questions and so forth. Great. I don't know. What else you guys want to talk about? We could talk about. Well, what do you guys want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
Don't be shy.
Why do you
Open
like
forum.
the viola, Robert?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, so there's two big reasons. One is not very interesting, and the other one is just sad.
Oh no.
The one that's not very interesting is it's my range. I always saw the viola like written in the tenor clef or whatever and stuff. So it's a tenor, and so I like its role. I like its subdued sound. So there's that, and then the other is just kind of its sad quality of where it feels like it's the instrument sort of left out of the limelight and should be up front.
Yeah.
And the piece that I wrote for tenor and viola was one of my first compositions that I wrote, of which we had to pick two instruments. And it's anyway, and so I wrote it for myself, which is and I thought the viola would be a great counter
Yeah.
and thing. So that anyway, that's the original. But since then, some of the things that I really enjoy about the viola is just it's a mellow instrument that can sound really big and is neglected. I like the actual quality of. We should just hear it more. I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
besides the fact of just geeking out as a composer with the tunings of it. I find that the tuning is really fits to my tonal structures easier. I mean, it's only a fifth below, right? But it's not that. Anyway,
Yeah.
It's
Oh, that
still,
makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and then just a lot of the sort of it's not bright,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is great for a violin, and
Yeah.
and it's not that I love that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like that subduedness of it, especially when it's solo. I have not heard way too many viola duos. A few, in fact, a few that you guys have talked about, because that's what's out there.
Yeah.
But I have heard it with like other instruments that I feel like it really, especially if you have an instrument that contrasts with it.
Yeah.
It brings out the beauty of what it is. And yeah, it's a silly question. What? So you guys are really drawn to the viola. You're not a bunch of violin failures.
No.
No,
I
we
mean,
both started
I
on
hate to
viola.
be like that, right? But isn't that like one of the you know
Yeah, stereotypes. Well,
stereotypes?
I'm doing my dissertation on viola duos actually, so I'm mid getting my doctorate amid all of these other projects somehow, and um, I think one of the most interesting things that I've kind of run across is that the viola didn't even have its own course until 1890s at the Paris Conservatory. So that was the first time that a teacher taught viola.
Technique and yeah.
And I think that's really telling is we've really only been around a little more than 100 years as an actual solo instrument that learns all the bells and whistles. And in that, I think another thing is, we've all heard the violinists go out and play Tchaikovsky with their full soul, throwing it out there. That sort of extroversion isn't really encouraged in the viola world. Um, we're supposed to be really good shadows, really good accompaniment, which, yes, we should do that. We should bridge the gap between the cello and the violin, but not all the time.
Well, and so you know, and I'm blaming you guys because you asked the question first. But when so I wrote a string quartet, and one of the places I was. So I always thought it was fascinating. The tenor is like in the same kind of placement as the viola, and tenor is like a lead line. And so I treated the viola as kind of a lead line, and I wrote a quartet with this. And literally, the quartet, not everybody, told me that's not the role of the viola. And I was like, well, why not?
Yeah.
And they're like, because it isn't. And they were like, we get it, but know that if you're going to write that way, you're going to have a problem with getting your string quartets played. Because violas don't play that way. And so for me, and when I was like learning, a string quartet is one of the other. Every composer has a string quartet. That's the first thing that we need to write, and so forth. And I got really into, what makes each instrument unique unto itself, right? And between the body of the instrument and the wolf tones that happen on the strings, and there's a whole physics of how the you're writing a dissertation, and there's a lot of that stuff. And so for me, one of the things that drew me to the viola was there's what's the right word? It's almost an assertion for an instrument that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the viola, the size is not standardized also.
Right.
So you can have a 15-inch viola or you can have an 18-inch viola and everywhere in between. And that means technique isn't standardized. That means the way we play is different. That means the sound on almost every viola is going to be incredibly unique. And this lack of standardization is a strength and a weakness. We're still like science experiment, whereas violin is solved, So I think that's cool that you like to experiment with that stuff.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me ask you about that. Well, Lauren, why aren't they standardized?
Dr. Spaulding. Almost.
Dr. Spaulding, almost. One day, maybe. We'll see. Knock on computer. Why aren't they standardized? That's a great question. I don't actually know the answer to that, but I think because they're not standardized, people keep making them not standardized. Um, the trend right now is to get smaller instruments, but the trend 10 years ago was to have massive instruments.
Yeah.
So I think volume, projection, um, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, Lauren just recently downsized from a 17 something inch viola to a 15, almost 16-inch viola. And like, you know, I get to enjoy and hear her complain every day about how her technique has changed. And like, you know, even your arm placement for your bow, instead of being out here, it's a little bit further back, and it alters everything, the smallest little thing. So I've always played on smaller violas. That's just kind of how it happened. So I never have had to go through an adjustment period of like either going bigger or smaller, but you've had a fun time doing that.
Well, okay, here's another fun thing I ran across is Beethoven, when he wrote all of his ridiculous parts, was playing on like a 14.5-inch instrument, which is basically a violin. So if you sit down and ask old me on a huge viola to play these ridiculously virtuosic and intricate parts, it takes so much work. It's so difficult. But moving down to a smaller instrument, it's a little bit more agile. And though you sacrifice a little bit of tone, I think in the end it's worth it.
Yeah.
But as a composer, that must be really interesting because you don't know who's going to be playing your piece. It's not like you like sit down and you're like, what size is your viola? And like make all of these edits for it. The instrument, I mean, the musician just has to make the edits on their own and figure out how to make it work.
Lauren, you have not seen the breadth of composers that I know.
Great. Oh, I'm so excited.
And I warn you, you say you have a 17-inch and a 15-inch viola. Did I get that right? I bet you, and I challenge to see if a composer puts in the program notes which one you should use.
I sold the other one, so it's gone now.
Well, there you go. Now we'll see if they were listening.
Yeah.
But yes, I do know many composers who do that.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's cool.
It depends. It can be.
Yeah.
How about that? It can be. It can be cool. It can be not cool too. But I think it's about intention, right? There's some people that are really authentic about that, and some who are not.
Yeah. Sure.
So, yeah, that's awesome. So you're preferring the smaller violas for now, yeah, because you're more agile, right?
Yeah, I don't have to work as hard to say the same thing. You know, it's a little less exhausting, and there's a little bit more room for emotional content instead of figuring out how to make physical content.
Yeah. I think, you know, as much as Lauren and I love viola too, there have been times in our lives where she's like, "Oh, I wish I played violin," and I have always been wishing I could play cello. So like, but I think it also has to do with a lot of like this unstandardized view of the viola, and you know, us going through school and having to play all the cello suites on viola, and it just doesn't sound, at least in our opinion. You know, if I'm going to listen to a recording of Bach cello suites, I'm going to listen to it on the cello. But we're always trying to be a violin or trying to be a cello, but trying to find the sweet spot where it's like we really, and composers, you know, writing new works and things that really just put the viola in its light and showcase what it does best, not trying to be something else that it's not. Yeah.
I agree. So my little research into the thing that, you know, the interesting thing about like violins and cellos, right, is that, you know, sonically created the, their side compared to the strings and the holes and so forth is going to give them this strong sound that they can project, of which was really, really important when they were made, because there was no amplification, and this is what they had to do, and so forth. And when I was young, I was just like, well, they should make the viola the same perfect thing, of which their answer is it's the same as the double bass, of which we all love and enjoy, and so forth. I don't know why the viola gets left out, but if they made the body the same proportions, it would be unplayable, because it would just be too long.
Yeah.
You can do it for, well, even a double bass, it's closer, but the truth is even if they got to the thing, you'd have to be standing on a chair to play. Again, it's too big. But the cello and the viola, that's why it's standardized, because they've mathematically figured it all out and so forth.
Yeah.
But again, then why have the instrument, right? And I think, there's a need. But so embrace the need, embrace its beauty.
Yeah.
Of which,
I don't know about you all, but every time the viola has a special moment in a quartet, I'm like, that's the best part. And the violinists and cellists always usually agree too. They're like, every time the viola has a juicy moment in a quartet, they're
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for, 15 juicy moments, right?
yes.
15 juicy moments. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, here's another funny thing, just kind of as we slowly move towards the end of this conversation, is we started this whole thing as a joke. Like this, I mean, not really a joke, but like we didn't think anything would come out of it. We didn't think we'd be...
It was a pandemic hobby at first.
Yeah. We just like each other and thought it would be fun to hang out and like learn some notes and learn from each other, just like most other viola duos form. But the more we thought about it, and the more we came up with a concept for...
The more you thought about it.
The more we thought about it and came up with a concept for who we are and what we stood for and what we loved, the more it evolved into something that feels important. I think Aria many a days was like, this is dumb. Why are we doing this? When I would like apply us for competitions or, put out calls for things, she was like, this is silly. But just recently, I think she's really started to, I mean, you can talk about your experience with it, but you've really come around.
Yeah, I think at the beginning I was a little skeptical, but because quartet has always been what I've loved to do, but this has definitely been, I've been able to experiment with a more like soloist side of myself, which I'm a little bit more introverted than Lauren is. So that's been a difficult but fun thing for me to like kind of try and come out of my shell a little bit. So yeah.
We have a lot of contrast in our playing style. Is I'm, up front and center, and Aria is like introverted and personal. And I think these two contrasts, and not to mention that our violas are kind of contrasting. Mine's pretty bright, and hers is much darker. And I think it's just the right balance of really, really, really different with a really, really similar idea that the ensemble has been pretty successful internationally even, which is, we never thought that. Never in a million years would we have been like, yeah, Nabucco wants us to come over and have some lessons. Like, never would we have thought this would go anywhere like that. But we've really grown from it, and it's helped my quartet playing. And Aria's looking for her quartet. Quartet's out there. If you're interested, she's available. But yeah, it's just changed our playing and changed our concept of what our viola and our instrument means.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds, it's exciting. And, not everybody has to be front and center either.
Mhm.
It's you know what, balance is always a good thing.
Yeah.
It's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, how it's been a joy to meet you both. I'm really excited. I want to thank you again for hopping on to being part of this project. How about this? I feel like this project is very underappreciated, just like the violists. You know, very. I encourage all composers to appreciate the effort and the work that you guys put into to reviewing and looking over the pieces, and just I literally just approaching the new music in the way that you do, like classical backgrounds, you know, galore and so forth. That's great. I you know, composers love musicians looking to sort of champion our music, and you know, your guys' enthusiasm just spills out over the screen. So it's on behalf of all composers, man, just saying thank you. It's a pleasure, and for myself, I really appreciate you being a part of this project. Yeah. With that said, more. We'll your call deadline is coming up. Remind me.
I have to look in the calendar.
Yeah.
I live it day by day.
It's coming up soon. It's a quick turnaround. So
Yeah.
all the composers get to going, and then we'll be hopefully you guys will be coming up here to New York to
Yeah.
record, and
Yep.
we'll do another one of these online sessions. It'll be a lot of fun.
15 juicy snippets. Can't
Like
wait.
juicy moosh boosh.
A
Yes.
moosh boosh.
Juicy, spicy moosh boosh.
Spicy, funky, all the words that came out today. So we're looking forward to hearing all of the compositions and looking forward to getting to know all of the composers.
Yeah.
So be it virtually or in person. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
yeah.